Good day, fellow Jersey nerds, and welcome to episode 50 of the Jersey Nerds podcast, powered by HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. I'm your host, Ryan. You can catch us anytime on Twitter at HockeyJC or email us anytime with your thoughts, podcast at HockeyJerseyConcepts.com. On the podcast today, we will be talking about the Hartford Whalers coming back via the Carolina Hurricanes for 2 nights only during the 2018-19 season. And we got to touch on the new Flyers mascot, Gritty. He's going to be coming up. He's had a big opening 2 weeks of his life, so that'll be very interesting. And we're going to be getting into our division winners and losers and just give a quick, before the year begins, Stanley Cup Final prediction. We also have Fake or Authentic and Throwback Throwdown. And the lone guest joining me this week is Thursday's writer, Shawn. Thursday, right, Shawn?
I am now the Thursday writer. Yes, coming to you live, if you're listening to this when we're recording it, which is weird, from a basement in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Tonight's jersey, the 2003-2004 Atlanta Thrashers alternate, famous for being the jersey patched up because Danny Heatley doesn't know how to drive stick.
There we go. This is our first all-Canadian podcast we've had in a while here, so we've always had some Americans jumping in and muddying up the waters, but
so everybody grab your stubbies, all right? Stubbies, grab your colorful money,
grab
some
maple syrup.
Low budget entertainment.
Yep, grab your maple syrup, put on your plaid. Let's get to work. Grow some beards. All right, now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get started. All right, probably the biggest jersey news of the week we're going to be leading off with, and that is the Hartford Whalers jerseys are coming back, and these are a very good reproduction, I would say. One of the few negatives about this is that it's been brought back in this era of retro, which we touched on last week. So while these, again, are fantastic looking jerseys, they get a bit of an eye roll from me just because it's retro and you want to see something new. Although, on the other side of that, we've already seen something new from the Hurricanes. It was a flop, but we've already seen something new. So they're coming back with the green jerseys. They're going to wear them twice. I don't know the second date, but the first date is December 23rd, I believe, is when they're going to wear them. But we got the green jerseys. We got the Whalers logo on the front, angled stripes on the sleeve that go white, blue, white. And on the hem, we have white, blue, white hem stripes. We kind of have like a rounded block font here for the captain's letter and the numbers on the back and the name on back. Authentic to the Whalers look from the 80s. The big detractor here is no Pucky the Whale on the sleeves. Shawn, I can't believe that they didn't put Pucky on the sleeves here. This was their chance.
It really was. I can't, it's the quintessential part of the Whalers jerseys to have that smiling, poorly drawn whale right on the shoulder. I guess that Adidas really didn't want that brought back, but I agree with what you said about this being sort of any other year and this would be the greatest thing ever, but this is the year that every team's doing this. And at the same time, you are right. We've seen something new from Carolina. I'm a little bit more forgiving of it, but at the same time, it's pretty crap. What I do like about this jersey, and I didn't like it at first, but I do like it now, is the hurricane pattern recolored on the inside of the collar.
Yeah,
it's a very subtle way to keep it with it being a Carolina jersey.
It's kind of a touchy subject, eh? The hanger effect, the hurricane flag hanger effect. Purists hate it because, I mean, it's obviously wasn't on the original jersey, but some people, I don't know, much like yourself, maybe enjoy it because it's a nod to the Hurricanes with the same lineage.
Well, I think that the key thing here is that this is still a Carolina Hurricanes jersey.
Yeah.
And there's a certain crowd in Hartford that still thinks that the Whalers are possibly coming back any day now. And that crowd really seems to annoy the decent people of Hartford. In fact, I've seen a few pretty smart takes on Twitter about, just let the Whalers die. Just let them just stop trying to bring him back.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I look at the Whalers jersey history, and again, I think we can all agree the Whalers have one of the best logos in history.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, I mean, you could, I mean, and there is a debate whether the recolored version or the current version or this version here that we're going to get into later in the podcast, but there's a debate there. But as for the jerseys, I don't know. Like, I mean, they're nice, but I put them in the same category as Calgary's red jersey. Like, it's nice, but there's nothing particularly special about it. And in fact, I actually prefer the version with the straight arms.
Yes, I would have preferred the straight arm version too, and that's just my classic tendencies. But I also wanted to see Pucky here. And the only thing I can think about is there must be, perhaps, there's some sort of trademark, Pucky trademark.
He belongs to the soccer team now.
So I don't know. Like, that may be the issue, and that may be why they can't use him here. But they've also used
maybe he still belongs
merchandise.
to the Rangers because of the Connecticut whale.
Exactly. Yeah, that might be true. But the NHL has sold merchandise that has the Pucky logo with the ERS at the end for Whalers. So who knows why he's been left off here? But I think it's a big omission. But I think some of the positive points that I mentioned was the accurate player number font and captain's letter. And we've talked about how we prefer the straight stripes, but the angled stripes are accurate to the early Whalers jerseys. What are we talking about here? Around 70, late 70s, early 80s. It's accurate to that time frame. So that's pretty good, And they're going to be wearing matching equipment, so you like that they're going to do it up the whole way here. One big change, and I thought this would be an Adidas trend going forward this season, is just the simple trim along the collar. No two-color collar hero attempt, no half cut off Adidas collar. We got the simple trim on the collar. What are you thinking about that here?
I think that, again, I don't think the Whalers had the collar wasn't something tied to the jerseys. Like, you look at some of the jerseys from the late 70s, early 80s into the 90s, and the collar really stood out on them. Like, you had big, bright collars that even sort of had striping patterns. The original Whalers jerseys just didn't have that. You could argue that the 92 to 97 ones did, for sure, because those were big and bold. But I'm looking at the photos of all three versions that were worn, and while you did have a little bit of blue in there, there was no stripe thick enough that makes me really miss it, per se, on this current version. It does look a little weird. I think you maybe could have made the entire collar blue with a little bit of white trim, or vice versa. Make that white make that trim blue, and then make the whole thing, including the Pentagon, white. I don't know. Mm-hmm. They decided to do it this way, and I think it's the most accurate version they could have gone for.
Yeah, absolutely. So another issue, and I guess this sort of ties in with the collar, is, are the Hurricanes the right team to be doing this? Now, the basic answer could be yes, because it's the same lineage. But when you get down to it, I don't know if Carolina fans have any attachment to Hartford fans. I don't know if Hartford fans really have any attachment to Carolina fans. And I just don't know if a deep emotional connect is here, rather than they're just wearing them because it's part of the lineage. Is Carolina the right team to be doing this?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because I get that Hartford really wants nothing to do with Hartford wants nothing to do with the Hurricanes whatsoever. Yeah. And a lot of people are resentful for them. The Hurricanes, on the other hand, there's this sort of feeling of respect, I think. I think that a lot of them like the Brass Bonanza, for example. I'm pretty sure they like the idea that, like, Gordie Howe, Bobby Hull, and Dave Keon all played for their organization at some point. But at the same time, I don't think that you don't see. It's not like I think the best example is, it's not like a California Golden Seals San Jose Sharks thing where they're technically connected, but they're in the exact same place. So there is a connection to it. Like, if the Sharks rolled out a Seals alternate, it'd be the most natural thing and it would work. When technically the Stars are the ones that are connected to them because of the Barons merger. Yeah. The other, but there's no, you can't give the Boston Bruins one of them. Like, you can't give their most geographical rival that jersey, because, I mean, none of them are recent enough to be able to do that. So I don't know. If any team's going to do this, I think it has to be Carolina, because the Hartford Wolfpack rebranded literally as a modernized, I guess, version of the Whalers. They tried it. People didn't like it at all. So that was your one chance.
Let me present two alternate realities here. Instead of Carolina doing 2 throwback nights, what if we had an unfortunate Fanatics vintage NHL Whalers jersey? Or what if the NHL, who is my understanding owns the Whalers brand, what if they just optioned Adidas to come out with an Adidas style Whalers jersey? Like, it's not actually going to be worn. What if they just brought out a special Adidas Whalers jersey?
As someone who loves to get names on his jerseys, but is very finicky with jersey fouls, how do you customize that? Like, if I want to get Kit Harington,
Well, I'm sure
it would be. Can I put him on that?
It would be part of the whole release, I would assume. Like, if the NHL is going to release that, they got to be ready for any kind of numbering kit. They would release a numbering kit or a style.
Oh, sure, but is it like the CCM vintage jerseys where they're styled directly to it, or is this a new thing?
Well, I don't know. See, it'd be like, what if they came out with this exact jersey, just without the warning flag pattern in the collar effect, and it was just like a special release, or I don't know. Let's celebrate.
Well, that just sounds like a scam. That just sounds like a way to take away $200 from a nostalgic Whalers fan.
What if it came out next year?
Because you can get a CCM vintage Whalers jersey for $95 if you want to forego Pucky.
No.
And $110 if you want Pucky.
I need Pucky. I'd pay the extra money for
That's
Pucky.
where CCM gets you, though, is that they make you pay for Pucky. Hashtag pay for Pucky.
But it sounds like that's going away, and it looks like Fanatics is taking over the vintage line with all the terrible things that you hate about Fanatics. Plastic crests and giant letters and just everything terrible about Fanatics. All right, so let's wrap this up here. Carolina, you're looking at this jersey. The Whalers are going to wear it twice this year. What's your rating out of 10?
I gave it a solid 7.5 out of 10. I think that this is probably in the middle of what Hartford wore in their entire history in terms of greatness to terribleness. It's probably the jersey that's going to sell the best, but you forgot Pucky. And with that, you forget everything charming about the Whalers. And on top of that, Carolina is a miserable team, so they'll play very much like the later Hartford rather than the green Hartford.
The jersey alone would be a 9 out of 10. A Pucky on the jersey would be a 9.5 out of 10. But let's start taking away points for the wrong team. For me, whatever. Carolina, this just seems odd. And I think they're actually more trying to sell it around the league rather than with Carolina fans. It's a bad time. We're in this retro era for the sake of retro. And I think it's just bad timing. So I'm going to have to settle on the same number as you here and go 7.5 out of 10. Great looking jersey, missing Pucky, bad time, wrong team. So I think 7.5 out of 10 is fair here for this Whalers, Hurricanes, reincarnation mashup, whatever you want to call it. Let's get on to our next topic here, which may be the most terrifying thing in the NHL. But some charm has grown on this character. We're talking about the new Flyers mascot, Gritty. And I think those initial promo photos that came out did not do this guy any justice. His first night on the ice, he spills out. The next day, those fantastic edited stock photos came out where he's peeking in the window while the two ladies are crying on the couch, or he's creepily in the distance while the kid is standing in the park. There were several others. But he's growing on Flyers fans. I don't even know if there was a negative reaction at the beginning from Flyers fans. And he's kind of lost this creepiness. It's still sort of there, but it also has this goofy charm that totally fits in with the Flyers. I mean, what did you think about Gritty when he first came out, and to the point where we're almost 2 weeks later now, where we are now?
Yeah, when I saw Gritty, my first thought was, ew. Great, another terrible NHL mascot, because we all remember the Vegas one wasn't particularly great. And I think both of us, knowing Carlton the Bear, know how just incredibly milquetoast some NHL mascots can be. That being said, Philly is an ugly city, not in terms of its nature, but in terms of the fact that it's a city of brotherly love.
It's gritty.
It's gritty, and this mascot perfectly symbolizes Philly.
Yeah.
It's not nice, but it's got character, and it does it well. I think that their whole shtick, I think, with this was they got you with the creep factor. Like, he's weird looking, and those promo shots, you're right, they did not do this guy justice, but he goes out there, and he sells it.
Yeah.
To the point now where, like, now he's going to be like, he's going to be up there with one of the better NHL mascots, because he's got something a lot of them lack, and that's character. Because they couldn't just go on the fact that it's a cute thing for the kids to take photos with. It's like, no, now you've got every Flyers fan going, well, he's weird looking, but I want a photo with Gritty so I can say I saw Gritty.
I wonder how many Flyers fans want to be Gritty. I mean, we've seen him in the preseason dumping a giant garbage bag full of popcorn on Rangers fans and being okay with it, and then just walking off. And the Rangers fans were okay with it too. Like, can you imagine, I don't know, Carlton the Bear in Montreal doing something stupid to a Habs fan? That guy would pop the Bear right in his stupid nose. But Gritty dumps a bag of popcorn on a Rangers fan, and they were laughing about it. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure as a kid, I made up Gritty in my head and had a nightmare about him. But, I mean, and he's shooting Flyers game ops guys with the t-shirt cannon. Who hasn't thought about that? I mean, seriously.
Whoever this guy is needs a raise, because he's really, like, if you think about in terms of, I don't know, Canadian mascots, since this is the All Canadian HSC podcast, Carlton's sucks. Youppi is a baseball mascot rebranded to be annoying. The Sens one is weird. Like, he doesn't look like anything normal.
No.
I like Mickey Moose, but his name really pisses me off. Like, it's a nice design, but I hate the name.
Yeah, it's bad. That's bad.
Harvey the dog has a nice little story with Craig McTavish, but the charm's worn off of that, and he hasn't had his tongue ripped out recently, so, I mean, that's done. I don't know what Edmonton's mascot is, but I'm sure that sucks.
It's that terrifying lynx. It came out a few years ago.
Right. You want to talk about actually terrifying. Like, the lynx is actually terrifying. Like, Gritty's just weird because when you see him moving, his eyes are constantly googly. Like, that's the thing. When the images are still, the eyes are landing wherever they're going to land. Those eyes aren't stuck like that. They're constantly moving. So that takes away from that. Meanwhile, you got that lynx thing that's way too realistic.
It looks like it's.
And then the orca is just a product placement. He's a corporate shill.
Yeah. The orca, whatever.
He sucks. So I think that, and Philly's previous mascot was the Quaker guy, and I feel like that would be kind of cool to bring the Quaker guy back too, and him be like he'd be the straight guy and Gritty's the jokester. Like, that would really work, I think, but they don't want to bring back the Quaker guy, but that's fine. He's very 70s. So yeah, I mean, the thing is that overall a mascot should be sold based on the antics, not the design. Like, think of the most famous mascots in sports. Like, the Philly Fanatics design sucks. He looks like a fat Sesame Street character, but his personality sells it.
But and I think Gritty is getting there. Gritty's never going to be at that level, but I think
not in it's going to take 20 years of him doing what he's doing now.
Yeah,
you have to have personality.
And Gritty's got tons of personality. I mean, again, going back to just where we were when the photos were released, and everybody was like, whoa, that thing's going to eat me. To the point now where a couple days ago I saw a story, someone's got a Gritty tattoo, and he was at the Phillies game a few days ago dancing on the visiting dugout with the Philly Fanatic. I mean, there's always the famous story about fans in Philly throwing batteries at Santa Claus or something like that. I feel like now Gritty would be the one in the crowd with a garbage bag full of batteries, handing them out to people.
It's going to be funny that Philadelphia hates Santa Claus, but loves Cookie Monster's orange-dyed hair metal drunken brother and a Fat Sesame Street character more than they love friggin' Santa.
I guarantee someone in Philly has said, "Oh, I'd like to go for a drink with Gritty."
What do the kids in Philly do? Like, Gritty's coming to the school, and like everybody in Pittsburgh's like, and the kids are like, Gritty's here, yay!
It's supposed to be like a learn to read program, and Gritty's just like throwing books off the wall and ripping them in half and getting the kids all riled up. They're going nuts because Gritty's going nuts and he's all anti-book. And so, I mean, considering all these things and where we were 2 weeks ago, where we are as of recording this podcast, can his debut be considered a success?
100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a team is what you want because you got the hook with the initial controversy. Controversy, quote unquote. Any news is good news here. And then you back it up with some solid mascotship. And then the rest of the teams are thinking, because I think what we're going to get now is we're going to get a team unveil a Gritty similar mascot. But while Gritty's genuine, it's going to be like, look, we're just Gritty, but we're really planned and, really awkward and stilted. Like we're going to see like Carlton start throwing things. He'll throw one game program down in the suit section at a Leafs game.
See, Gritty would come along with a pair of scissors and cut the ties of everyone sitting in the platinum seats. Not Carlton. I mean, that's when the people in the platinum seats are actually there and not at the sushi bar or the cocktail lounge or what else?
That's the other thing is when you're a Leafs fan, you don't really notice this, but like at other stadiums, the mascots actually go around. Carlton has like a little podium over in the corner of the ACC where he spends most of the game, and then you can have a photo with him.
Yeah, the flat surface, and after he does his little bit on the big screen, if you catch him, he might do a photo or two. I remember he broke my son's heart. It was like 2014 Fan Fest. It was a gong show, the Fan Fest. It was free, and they didn't plan anything properly. But anyways, my son is 2 years old at the time, lines up for half hour to get a picture and an autograph from Carlton. I guess Carlton was having the worst day ever because the bear did not look up. He was just sitting there scratching his name on a piece of paper. And my son actually left the autograph at the arena. He did not care. And now, so screw you, Carlton. That's what you've done. 6-year-old boy still hates you for what you did 4 years ago. All right. So 2018-19 season, just around the corner here. Let's get into where we think each team is going to not specifically finish in the division. We'll be a little more general. We'll say which teams we think are going to miss the playoffs from each division and which teams are going to make it. We'll go over our division winners, and if you got a little explanation, throw it in there. And then at the end, we'll do a really quick Stanley Cup Final prediction. So, Shawn, let's start with your division, the Winnipeg Jets division, the Central Western Conference. Looking at the 7 teams in that division, who do you have missing the playoffs?
I think that Chicago is an obvious miss, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because I think it's going to be a quick rebuild. They have a good farm system, but when you sign Cam Ward, that's a sign you just want to suck for the year, and that's fine. Let him suck. It's going to be short. Yeah. I don't think Dallas has particularly done enough to get over the hump since St. Louis improved so much, and neither is Minnesota. So the playoff teams out of the Central, I think you have Winnipeg, Nashville 1 and 2. That can go either way. Those teams are just top 2 in the NHL again this year, I think. Colorado's still a playoff team, and St. Louis got really good over the offseason. So look for it to go. I'm going to go Winnipeg number 1, Nashville number 2, St. Louis 3, and Colorado 4 are your playoff teams.
I have the exact same as you, except I have Colorado and St. Louis switched around. So I got Colorado at 3, St. Louis at 4, and I like Bruce Boudreau as a coach. So I think this is going to be one of those situations where 5 teams make it from the Central and only 3 from the Pacific. So I am putting Minnesota into the playoffs here. I think they're coached well. They have a few good pieces that they're good enough to just make it in. So I do have Minnesota being the 5th team from the Central to make it into the playoffs here. But yeah, just like you, I got Chicago finishing last in the division. I got Dallas. I think they've stalled, and I don't think they'll make the playoffs. And I actually have Winnipeg winning this division because I also agree with you. Winnipeg and Nashville are very close, but I think Winnipeg keeps getting better because they're younger. Where again, I think Nashville is just stalled. So that's why I got Winnipeg winning the division there. Let's go on to the Pacific. We got 8 teams here. Vegas won this division last year, but let's start with the teams you have missing the playoffs in this division.
All right, so Vancouver. We got a long way to go in Vancouver. Edmonton's a tough. See, here's the thing. Every team from here on out is very tough to say. I do think Anaheim misses.
Yeah.
Not because they don't have a good goaltender, not because they don't have a good coach, and not because they don't have good pieces. But, I mean, when one of your best pieces seems to be on a free fall, that being Corey Perry, like, yeah, and Getzlaf's fantastic, but he's not good enough to carry the team on his back. LA's another team that I'm not too sure about. I'm not sure if adding Kovalchuk is enough, considering that they are getting older. Calgary's a tough one, too, because, again, like, they're good. But they've never really solved goaltending since Kiprasov.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going out on a limb here. Arizona is a team that I think right now has the pieces to make the playoffs. They just have to play their guts out.
Arizona, I can never bet on Arizona just because it's a ridiculous franchise to begin with. But I mean, they showed well in the second half of last season, but when you're that far out and you're not really playing for anything, the pressure's off. Teams aren't taking you as seriously as they maybe should have. I think there might have been a few bonus wins in there. So, but again, we don't know. Are they that good, or was it? They
did get Galchenyuk.
They did.
That's a pretty good move.
And they gave up Domi.
And Ranta's proven to be a starter. I think San Jose wins the division, not just because they got Carlson, but they got the best goalie in that division by far.
Yeah,
and they're a good young team.
Yeah, they finished with 100 points last year. Anaheim finished with 101. Vegas finishes with 109. But yeah, I also have San Jose winning the division here. My playoff teams from this division are going to be, I got San Jose, Vegas, and LA just scraping in. So I got LA and Minnesota in the Western Conference just scraping in. Teams that are out from the Pacific Division, Calgary, I just don't think they're making enough improvements, even with the coaching change. And I don't know if I'm a fan of that trade with Carolina. I like Dougie Hamilton. I don't know what Noah Hannafin is going to be. And who's the other guy? Lindholm that they got. I just don't understand.
I'm a huge fan of that trade. Because
okay.
While I do like Dougie Hamilton, I just don't think Carolina's his home. Like, he's going to be a guy that I think he's going to hit 30 and he's going to find a forever home. Like, he's that puppy with the unique personality who just keeps getting shifted around, and then he gets sent to, like, the Rangers and plays 10 years there and has a Hall of Fame career from there.
And does just fine.
My playoff teams are going to be San Jose. I mean, I hate to say it, of course, but Vegas, Calgary, and Arizona.
All right, leaving LA.
But that being said, Edmonton, again, you can't do anything with them because who knows? This was a Stanley Cup favorite last year.
For some people.
Points.
For some people, that was.
People.
I think that, we live in Canada, but I think that was Canadian media getting carried away.
Which is funny because the team that actually, Canada's best hope for the Cup Final, the team full of 23-year-olds.
Yeah.
The ex-Atlanta Thrasher 23-year-olds were Canada's best Cup hope. Meanwhile, the team that was actually supposed to do it finished only 7 points better than Montreal.
There you go. So I think the Pacific is one of the more compelling and harder divisions in the NHL. But yeah. So I got San Jose, Vegas, LA making it in the Pacific and the Central. I got Winnipeg, Nashville, Colorado, St. Louis, Minnesota. Those are the 8 for me. Shawn, just want to recap the 8 that are making it for you in the West.
All right, so I got Winnipeg, Nashville, Colorado, St. Louis, San Jose, Vegas, Calgary, and Arizona.
There we go. Okay. Moving on to the East, let's start with the poorly named Metro Division. out of the playoffs in this division, I have the Islanders, the Rangers, Carolina, Columbus, and Philly all missing the playoffs. I got 5 teams out of 8 missing the playoffs in this division. What do you got, Shawn?
This is very tough because I'm going to say this. So Carolina's definitely out. The Islanders are definitely out. And the Rangers are out. Because I think the Rangers are going to have an okay year.
Yes,
I think that it's a rebuild, but they're not Carolina, New York level.
No,
bad.
they're not going to be. It is a rebuild, but they're not as bad as what they're maybe trying to claim they're going to be.
Yeah, well, that's they're trying to manage expectations.
Yep.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
New Jersey, I don't know. Now here's the thing: it all depends. If their goalie shows up, that's all they need. They need their goalie to show up and their young guys to keep improving, and they're a playoff team. Don't know about that. Columbus, I think, is going to get better than they were last year. I think they're a good team. Philly's tough because they have one of the best scorers in the league in Claude Giroux.
Yeah.
And some of the best young players, but I mean, Philly literally is cursed with goaltending.
And I don't find their defense is overpowering.
No.
So I think...
No, and Pittsburgh's interesting, though, because they're a team that you find mid-season always seems to be slipping and then picks it right back up and finishes with 100 points. Just how many years can you do that?
Well, I feel like they're motivated this year. I mean...
They should be.
I got them winning the division here this year.
I still think... Well, that's tough because, it's either going to be Pittsburgh or Washington. I think Washington has the edge in goaltending and defense, but Pittsburgh has the better scoring. And I think Pittsburgh's a better physical team.
For me, I got Washington second because the pressure is back on them. I mean, they all said last year that they succeeded because the pressure was off and the expectations weren't put on them. I think this year, Cup winners, people are expecting them to win the division. Pressure is back on, can't handle it. So that's why, can't handle it in as much as they're not going to win the division. I got Pittsburgh winning the division, Washington second, New Jersey third here. But, again, I don't think Washington's going back-to-back because of the pressure issue.
I can see where you come from that. I mean, I distinctly remember when Jose Theodore was the goalie there and they were winning 117 points in a year.
Yeah.
And then losing to the Hamilton Bulldogs, let's be real here, in the first round of the 2010 Stanley Cup playoffs, for those who don't remember that. Yeah, I think I have the same top 3 as you. I'll put Columbus in at 4, and those are my playoff teams. But again, Philly could sneak. I could even see the Rangers sneaking in. Because they just have no expectation, and it almost seems to be intentional. Like this, let's just think we're going to suck, and then come out and win 95 points.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't think Columbus is going to do well because I've heard reports, just media reports, that Bobrovsky wants out, Panarin wants out. I think we're getting to that point now where Tortorella, I don't like him as a coach, but I don't play in the NHL, so that doesn't matter. But I think he has a shelf life, and we're getting to that point now where players are going to start tuning him out. So I just don't like the direction that Columbus could possibly be headed in this year. So I do have them missing on this year. Let's go to the Atlantic Division now. We got Tampa Bay winning this division last year. We have the very interesting Maple Leafs in this division. From this division, I have 5 teams in the playoffs, 3 teams out. My 3 teams out might be fairly obvious here. I got Detroit, Montreal, and Ottawa. Those are the bottom 3 teams in this division. Can you agree with that, Shawn? I mean, this seems to be the consensus here around the league that these are going to be the bottom 3 teams in this division.
Barring Buffalo, sucking again. Yeah, and again, it's funny because are Detroit and Montreal that bad? I don't know about Montreal, but Detroit, no. Detroit's doing okay for a rebuild. They seem to be making some better moves than they did last year. And I think that, honestly, getting rid of Mrazek and keeping Howard has kind of led to some stability in the locker room, and the fact that they do have the best farm team in the Grand Rapids Griffins. That they're up there with the Marlies and the Texas Stars in terms of the best farm systems. So, but Montreal is a gong show, and Ottawa is. Where to begin with that team? Like
it's two dumpster fires, and they just keep pouring gas on it.
That's exactly what it is. It's two separate dumpster fires. Because on the one side, you got a bunch of guys splitting town because they think management doesn't care about them, and Anderson stayed, sure.
I think he still wants out. First chance they get.
Oh,
he
for
wants
sure.
out.
I think.
Yeah.
But this is the team that traded Dion Phaneuf for Marian Gaborik.
Yeah.
You somehow did worse for Captain Pylon himself. And I am actually a Captain Pylon defender a lot of the time. I don't love him or anything, but I don't hate him. And yet, I sit there and I go, you really traded for like a 38-year-old Marian Gaborik.
Oh, yeah. Ottawa, I mean, it doesn't even look like they know what they're doing right now. It looks like they're just trying.
Are they going to be worse?
Are they going
to be worse than Colorado? 2 years ago, Colorado finished with like 49 points.
Yeah, that was pretty
Ottawa
bad.
finish under that?
I don't know. That's tough to say because that was really, really bad for Colorado.
But they came back from that so quickly. I just don't see Ottawa doing that because, like, who do they have?
They don't. No one. I mean, their hopes are on Bobby Ryan and Matt Duchene, who they've spent the last year ragging on for not producing.
Colorado literally kicked Duchene to the curb for nothing because he was a locker room cancer.
And it seems like the right
was
move.
The guy, if we remember a couple of years ago, Duchene was the guy who J.S. Giguère called out in a press conference directly for saying he cared more about awards at the end of the year than he did about winning games when Colorado was 30th in the league at that point. And I can't wait for Craig Anderson to do the same thing and then him get traded to, like, Edmonton.
So it's a matter of time until I guess the players quit on the season. I guess they get to the end of December and realize where they are and then let the dumpsters burn.
Let the fire sale begin. The fire sale of what, you ask? I don't know. Like, what do the Leafs come in and pick up Mike Condon?
All right, let's go on a little brighter note here in the Atlantic Division. We'll talk about our playoff teams. Just for the fear, I'm a Leafs fan, and just for the fear of ever expecting the Leafs to do well, I still have to pick Tampa Bay to win this division. Tampa Bay is still a very good team. All the focus is on the Leafs right now in this division because of the free agent signing and just what they're expected to be. But just for fear of predicting any good for the Leafs, I have Tampa Bay winning the division. How about you, Shawn?
I'm actually going to give the division to Boston.
Really? Okay.
Because here's the thing. I don't trust Tampa with a 10-foot pole. They're a glass cannon. Vasilevsky gets hurt. Who do they have?
Yeah.
Louis Dominguez.
Yeah,
the guy Arizona said, you're too good. Stamkos gets hurt. They can't make the playoffs. They're injury prone. Not at the same time, but their key players get hurt a lot. Boston, on the other hand, they missed the playoffs that 1 year, a couple of years ago. And ever since then, they've just been quietly building. And they got Pasternak, who I love. He's a fantastic player. Tuukka Rask is probably going to be one of the best goalies of the decade. And the thing is that, and again, I think it's going to be a Winnipeg-Nashville thing between Boston and Toronto, except a lot less sportsmanlike between those two teams because they don't like each other. Florida, I think, is another team that I think people aren't giving enough credit to.
I have Florida in.
They got some good young talent and two pretty solid goaltenders.
Yeah.
I mean, say what you will about James Reimer, but he's played pretty well there.
I mean, Luongo went down for a couple portions of time last year. And not to say Reimer's a starter. I think that's been proven. Reimer's not starter material, but he can come in and give you a group of games. And so even with all this going on, they only missed the playoffs by 1 point. That's a win here or a win there at any point in the season, which I think they'll pick up this year. and they're in. So I do have Florida. I have Florida finishing 4th in the division,
Yeah.
but I still have them comfortably in the playoffs as a lower seed.
And they could win a series, honestly.
They could.
I think that they're good enough. Buffalo, the rebuild's over.
It's time to grow, and I think I think the divisions, especially the Atlantic, is kind of weak enough there in the bottom or middle that they can pick up enough wins to squeeze in. I think there'll be a similar situation to how Florida was last year. So if they miss, it's going to be by 1, 2, or 3 points kind of thing. And if they get in, it'll be kind of end of the season or second last game.
They improved in goaltending with Carter Hutton.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's a starter per se. He played well. This will be his first year starting, so good for him. Eichel, this is his chance.
It's his team.
The cancers are gone in Buffalo. Like Evander Kane's gone.
Yeah, it's Eichel's team now. I mean, it's time for Eichel to step up. He demanded or asked for the $10 million contract. They gave it to him because he was supposed to be in McDavid's draft year. He was supposed to be the consolation prize, and I don't think he's touched that area of potential yet. And this is the year. It's time to get going.
They got a lot for Ryan O'Reilly from the Blues too.
Yeah, it seems like it. They got this huge center, Sabatka. Who's going to be? I mean, he's a depth player, but that'll come into play. You need that.
They still have Ristolainen.
And of course,
I think bringing back Pominville was a good idea.
Again, glue kind of depth guy who should work out for them. And then, of course, we're forgetting about Dahlin here, the first overall pick from this past draft. And from all accounts, I have not seen him play. I'm sure, obviously, Sabres fans have. But from all accounts, he is a game changer. When the puck's on his stick, he can control the game, which should help the Sabres. Let's say an extra win, 2 or 3 during the season. That may be enough to put them in the playoffs. So
I don't think one thing that helps in Buffalo is the fact that their GM slipped up and said, if anybody remembers this, he said that it's nice that we're able to pick the player we want this draft.
Yeah, they did. They tanked pretty hard in that McDavid draft, and they got Eichel. So let's go to now a throw it out there Stanley Cup Final prediction. You don't have to predict a winner, but after all is said and done, and it's June 2019, who are the two teams playing in the Stanley Cup Final?
I think this year it's going to be the Winnipeg Jets, and they are going to be playing. Let's go with the Pittsburgh Penguins.
All right. And
I think the Winnipeg Jets win that. And I'm drunk for a week. Just celebrating.
You're picking your team to win the Stanley Cup this year.
I am, and I've never done that in any sport.
So
I've never done this before.
This is a good question for the listeners. Are you ever confident enough in your team to predict that they are going to win the championship? This can go into any sport. As I guess maybe Patriots fans in the NFL, they have the right on most occasions to be confident enough in their team to predict them as Super Bowl champions. But any other team, do you ever have enough confidence in your team to predict them as the league champions? Shawn does. Let us know. Twitter @HockeyJC. Email podcast@hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. We'd be interested to hear this. But like you, Shawn, I got Winnipeg in the Stanley Cup Final, and I'm undecided between Tampa, Boston, Pittsburgh. I can't say Toronto. I just can't. I know can't what you mean. Say Toronto.
No, I want to say Toronto will win the East, but you can't because the last time everybody said this, they lost to the Flyers in the 2004 semifinals.
So I mean, I can't say. I know they're good. I know they're good up front. I also know they're not good defensively, and that usually doesn't bode well for deep playoff runs. So it's obviously a process. There's more time here in Toronto, But I'll just say Tampa Bay. I'll take Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay, Winnipeg in the final. And I'll go with you, Shawn. And I'll take the Winnipeg Jets to be the 2019 Stanley Cup champions.
Like the second Hellebuck raises that cup, like that's it. Like that's just, there will probably be a keg in my mouth at that point.
We'll have to get you on the podcast.
I'll call into the podcast from a remote location in rural Nova Scotia.
You won't
drunk
even know
out of my mind.
All right. That was the news for the week. Let's dive into Throwback Throwdown. This week's Throwback Throwdown is a whale of a battle, and that's based on the Hartford Whalers news from this week. So we're going to take the two Hartford Whalers jerseys and put them up against each other. We have the initial Hartford Whalers NHL jersey from 1979-80. Now this one does have Pucky the Whale on the sleeves. We have a two-color collar. This is the one that had all the Howe family with their full name on the back of the jersey. Let's just do the green jersey for this one. We'll just talk about the green jersey. It's going up against the 1992-93 Navy Hartford Whalers jersey. This is where they outlined the logo in gray, went with navy in place of royal blue, introduced a lot more gray onto the jerseys, updated it with kind of a wider and maybe more thinner block font. Stripes are a big green stripe outlined in white, thin navy, and big stripes of gray. Shawn, let's go to the initial Hartford Whalers jersey, the green one. What are your thoughts here?
It's a very classic jersey of the era, very bright jersey. The blue itself is kind of a background color. Even on the white jersey where there's more of it, you notice that it's still got a lot more of the green and white, which is fine. I think it's very indicative of the era, very colorful. I think that one thing where this struggles in, though, is doesn't do the best job of color balancing the logos, which in a vacuum, both are fine. But when they're paired together, they just don't really do each other well. I think that being said, though, I do like how I guess they're Blackhawk style hem stripes. I guess you could say that.
Yeah, I suppose so.
And the arms, that I like that, like the angled arms, straight hem. They did that well. And I also like that it's sort of the inverse of the angled arms we got used to about 20, 30 years later in the 2000s. Like Pittsburgh, for example, they were angled facing inward, and now they're facing outward. So I think that's a pretty nice touch, especially considering, I don't remember a lot of teams doing that.
Yeah, as far as some awesome points about this jersey, the logo is incredibly strong. This might be the best logo of all time, just because the H is in there. You could doodle this logo if you wanted to very easily, with the whale tail and the W. You can tell they're the Whalers. So the logo is just the star of this jersey, obviously. Colors are cool. Green and blue usually look good together. At this point in time, while reviewing this jersey, not a huge fan of the big white cuffs, but I do remember seeing these jerseys as a kid and that never really being an issue. So, tastes change as time goes along. Pucky the Whale is on this jersey. It fit the era, the late 70s, early 80s. After a while, he went away. 85, I suppose he went away. And then as we started getting to the retro jerseys, he's kind of campy, right? You want him on the jersey. It's neat to have Pucky on the jersey because, just going back in time and remembering how Pucky the Whale used to be on a professional hockey jersey. Block font's fantastic here. Green helmet, socks, stripes, colors, as I mentioned, fantastic. Just a really solid jersey here where the logo is the star. And now we switch to the 92 version. We're talking specifically about the Navy version. And I really thought they muddied up a great logo here, Shawn. What are your thoughts on this one?
I actually love the Navy jersey.
And the reason why is because these are the Whalers jerseys I grew up on. Not because I'm old enough to have actually grown up when the Whalers existed, but because when I was about 10 years old, my dad gave me a PC copy of the original NHL hockey from EA Sports.
Oh, yeah.
In a big box, and it came with a 1992-93 yearbook.
Yes, I had that.
With all the player stats.
Did it have Mike Richter on the front, I think?
No. This said on the game.
I had one for the game. Yes, it
might have had Mike Richter on there, but the yearbook itself had the Habs '93 team winning the cup.
Oh, okay, all right. No, I had something different. All right, go on.
So pulled that out, and it had the Whalers. Now the Whalers were, I believe, in '92-93, they were one of the worst teams in the NHL. But those are the Whalers jerseys I grew up on, because at that point I was done playing like NHL 03 and 04. I was kind of like, I want to play something. Yeah, they finished with 58 points that year.
Oh.
And their big stars were like Andrew Castles. So that'll tell you how good they were. But yeah, I have a certain level of nostalgia for these Whaler jerseys because I never saw this team. These jerseys weren't even in the NHL games at this point. But the one NHL game I could play them in, the 8-bit or 16-bit game I was running on a compact laptop. I was running MS-DOS on Vista to play these things. And, fantastic game, fantastic jersey. But again, I get why Whalers fans or Whalers appreciators don't like it. I think the logo does look better here. I really think that if they'd done a better job balancing the colors with the white jersey, you'd have a lot better of a look. I think that this is more indicative of the time, and frankly, it's more indicative of the team's play, because in the late 80s, the Whalers were good but not great, and if you ran into the playoffs, you didn't think they were easy. The Whalers of the 90s were terrible.
Terrible. You thought they moved because of lack of wins.
Bettman sent his office, I'm sorry, Whalers, you need 18 wins in a season
to
live.
You didn't hit the marker. Sorry, we're moving you to Carolina. Yeah, as far as this jersey, and I'm talking about the Navy jersey here, I have no problem with the white jersey from this changeover in 92-93. But going to the Navy jersey, I was always disappointed with the use of the logo, where they put it on, it kind of ended up on this gray patch, which then this big gray patch ends up on the jersey. Well, I was never a fan of that from where it came to where it went. I always thought it was a bad idea switching from green to navy as one of their main colors. Green looked fantastic. We always need a few more green jerseys in the NHL. So I remember when this switch was made, and I wasn't happy about the switch to navy. It felt like a switch just because it's the 90s and you got to do something different for the 90s. But I think the striping pattern is fantastic. I really like the number font. It's rather similar to what the New Jersey Devils still wear, but it was a little thinner, kind of had more points on it. But again, yeah, like I said, logo treatment and navy as the main color are the main drawbacks here for me. I have a feeling that we may end up in a tie and need the listeners to break our tie here. But go ahead, Shawn. Who's your winner of the Throwback Throwdown, the whale battle?
Oh, I'm looking at some vintage photos here, and you know what? I'm going to give you some points on the white jersey. I never really liked it, but I'm looking at it right now, and I'm just looking at it. It very much is, I think it was ahead of its time almost, because it's one of those jerseys that looks better with the gear.
Yes.
Like it's color balanced with the gear. Yeah, I got to give this to the Navy jersey. It's just the Whalers jersey I'm more familiar with. I have a little bit of nostalgia for it, and you can get a wonderful name on the back of that jersey, Glenn Featherstone.
Glenn Featherstone. Why Glenn Featherstone?
Long names on the back of hockey jerseys are very desirable, I think. But the best name to get in a Whalers jersey, I think, is Andre Nicolishin.
Well, going back to the long names, there are some retailers, this may have changed since, but there are some retailers who don't know all the rules. They just get into jersey numbering, to make money. And so the rules are handed out that last names are not allowed to exceed 11 or 12 letters, I think it is. So if you go back to 92-93, the year we're talking about, Ken Baumgartner used to play for the Leafs. And I believe his last name exceeds the allowable limit. So there are tons of Ken Baumgartner jerseys that they took out the E at the end of the name So it was just NR, not NER. So anyways, that's just a little tangent there about long names and some retailers not doing them. But you're taking the Navy jersey as your winner for this Throwback Throwdown.
Yeah, for sure.
All right.
You know.
And as I suspected, we are ending up in a tie as I'm taking the green jersey with Pucky the Whale. And it's Pucky the Whale and the fact that it's a green jersey that give it the win here for me. As I said on the Navy jersey, love the stripes, but the main logo treatment and the fact that it's Navy cause it to lose this Throwback Throwdown. So now we're in a 1-1 tie, and now we need the listeners to help solve this problem for us. So again, you can choose your Throwback Throwdown winner. Tweet us at HockeyJC or email us podcast@hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. Let us know who wins this Throwback Throwdown between the first ever Hartford Whalers NHL green jersey going up against the 1992 Hartford Whalers Navy jersey. And if we get enough votes, we'll give you the results next week right here on the Jersey Nerds podcast. But now it's time to get to fake or authentic. Fake or authentic? Fake or authentic? This is where I've come up with 3 statements that I believe to be authentic, and we'll see what Shawn thinks about them. He'll have to say whether or not he thinks they are, just like the NHL jerseys you see around the NHL arenas. He'll have to determine whether these statements are fake or authentic from his point of view. Here we go. Statement number 1. The Adidas template really minimizes the effect that the collar can have on the overall look of the jersey. Are you fake or authentic, Shawn?
I am for sure authentic on this statement. Look at the Oilers 16-17 alternate and home playoff jersey, and look at that thick 70s style striped collar, the one that loops over itself. That's a design element that really works for a team when done properly. Look at the Sabres and Devils collars from the 80s. Those are stripes in and of themselves, realistically. And the Adidas collar doesn't really allow for that. You know, it works in its own way. And honestly, I think I prefer it in terms of design elements to most of the Reebok collars.
Okay.
That being said, I don't think it has the same, versatility in use as a stripe that the pre-edge system had.
Yeah, I think that this is authentic for me because I think just the way the collars are laid out, the shoulder pads, the collar of the jersey actually kind of sinks in almost under the shoulder pads when players wearing them. That it just, if it's not a big blocky color, then it just gets lost. And so I kind of like you look at St. Louis, the alternate they came out with for this upcoming season, it just uses the thin gold trim on the collar. I think it's just a design element that's going to get lost when the players are wearing it. And the whole collar kind of gets lost. It kind of sinks in there and disappears. So we're both authentic on that one. Moving on to our next statement, fake or authentic. The Calgary Flames jerseys from the mid to late 90s are retro jerseys that should not come back. And these are sometimes referred to as the podium jerseys. They have the stripe running up through the hem stripes, kind of diagonally to right under the Calgary Flames logo. Shawn, fake or authentic on this one? These should never come back.
It's just too soon. They wore these in 2000.
Was it all the way to 2000?
Yeah, they lasted a while.
Oh, okay. So 18 years ago they went away.
Yeah, so I mean, is that like why bring that back? Like, it's too never ever. That's fake. I mean, I like them. I like them personally. I distinctly remember one of my favorite goalies of all time, Freddie Brathwaite, making a particularly amazing save doing that, wearing those jerseys.
It's got to be the jersey.
It's the jersey, and the fact of the matter is the Flames were terrible when they wore them, and the bright spot was literally Freddie Brathwaite, and that's it. Because Roberts was on his way out, Housley was at the end of his career. Fuhrer came in and had played, again, he played some good hockey, but like outside of goaltending, Calgary was garbage in those years.
Trevor Kidd.
Those jerseys haven't aged well.
No.
I'll admit it. I love them.
They look very 90s.
They look very, very late 90s, and if the team was successful, during that era? Oh yeah, totally. Like that's totally fake. But if your team was crap during that era and you don't really have the outcry for it, yeah, I kind of see where you're coming from.
Yeah, again, like these are how people view the Flying V jerseys from the early 80s, which I think have a lot of charm to them and really aren't that terrible. That's how I view these jerseys. It's just a jersey that is terribly, terribly ugly and never needs to come back.
And yet the fisherman,
it's got this, again, campy charm to it. And just the fact that it's hated so much. I want to bring it into my house like a dog without a home and take care of it.
That'd actually be a really good HJC podcast topic. You guys tell us in the comments below if you want this podcast. We're going to go through. I have the Hockey News' 2010 issue of the jersey issue.
Oh, yeah. I remember that one.
And top 10 worst jerseys of all time. And the one I'm wearing is on it.
Oh, it's
Thrashers. The Buffa Slug. Yeah, it's the Buffa Slug. The Thrashers asymmetrical. It's got the Mooterus.
Okay.
It's got the Burger King.
Okay.
Flying V.
All
and
right.
then Wild Wing. The Phoenix Desert Scene jersey.
Really? Okay.
And then I think LA's 70s yellow jerseys.
No, I mean with the
yellow pants.
With the pants, it was a bad choice, but okay, not the worst.
And then Golden Seals teal jerseys.
No, nope.
I know, like this list is literally just jerseys I'd like to own.
Yeah, I mean the Wild Wing. The reason why I want the Wild Wing and the reason why I want the Fisherman and the reason why I own a Burger King jersey is because they were all so hated and everybody just said burn them and get rid of them. And then because of that, they became these collector's pieces where it's like, oh, nobody wants them. All right, I'll take them. They're cool.
And I'm going to say that, 10 years later, the Mooterus has that charm.
I never had a problem with the Mooterus. Someone had to point out to me why it was called the Mooterus.
I don't even hate it if it looks like that. Big deal. You have to kind of squint to see it. like the actual worst jerseys in NHL history are the boring ones.
That's true.
And the templated ones.
Like the Leafs' initial Edge jerseys. They might need to be on
that
there.
bad, considering most of the Edge jerseys.
They were bad. They were really plain. And that logo is going to always be associated with failure. With an asterisk for the early 90s.
And 2000s.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, but they just kept making the playoffs and never going anywhere.
I do find it interesting that logo existed for close to 40 years.
And it's associated with failure.
And it's associated with failure, but they made the playoffs almost every year except for the late 80s and that 10-year streak.
The 80s, and well, mostly the 80s, was the old Chuck Norris division with Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit, the North Stars, and the Maple Leafs. And occasionally Winnipeg was in that division, and Tampa spent a year in that division. So there would be 5 teams in the division, and the top 4 made it. So the Leafs just made the playoffs based on numbers. The fact that they didn't finish last gets them in the playoffs.
The All Leafs podcast needs to happen because I'm of the belief that the Leafs would have won a Stanley Cup in the early 70s had they not traded Bernie Perron.
It's worth a discussion, and Leaf haters out there would tune into the podcast. Because people love to hate on the Leafs. It's like a pastime.
It is, because the number of people I correct about Raycroft.
I saw a great tweet because a few days ago the NHL tweeted out something about the Leafs power play and doesn't this look great? And then just all the comments were, oh, screw you. You're just playing favorites to the Leafs. And I mean, as all Leaf comments are, you can't mention anything about the Leafs without getting hammered with, you're playing favorites to the Leafs. But finally someone else tweeted, it's nice to know that Leaf fans and the Leafs are living rent free in everybody's minds this year, which is true. I mean, that's all people are worried about, that the Leafs are going to be so successful that they're going to have to hear about it. And that's just.
When's the last time the Leafs were hyped this much?
Serious? Maybe the early 90s after the Gilmore year.
You don't think 03-04, the year they went out and got Leach, Francis, Neuendijk?
That was 02, I think. 03 or 02. Because 04.
No, 03-04.
No, that was the last year before the lockout. They didn't have Leach. But did they?
That's when they got him.
Did they have Leach and Housley?
Well, 2003 was the year they got Barrasso from the Hurricanes.
Yeah. Oh, well, doesn't matter. We'll cover it on the All Leafs podcast, which will
episode 51.
Yeah, when the Leafs are 20-0 this upcoming season, we're going to throw out the All Leafs podcast. All right, last
Captain Mac wins the Vezina.
Last fake or authentic. Even if it was a vintage jersey by Fanatics, I would still buy an Islanders fisherman jersey. So we're talking an Islanders fisherman jersey in the Fanatics style. Would you buy it, Shawn? I am.
Oh, totally fake.
Oh, see, I'm authentic here.
They're not rare.
What? Fisherman? No, they're not rare, but paying a decent price for one is rare.
Well, you just have to. I mean, I have my Islanders wave jersey, love it to death. If a Navy fisherman jersey was $250, I'd still take that over a Fanatics version. The reason being is because, like, for me to get a reproduction of something, it has to be so rare. And it's like a Wild Wing is probably the only one. Because I got the Desert Scene. The Burger King exists under $300, under $250, even under $200 in the original issue. I think that right now, like the rarest jerseys out there right now are the Reebok authentic, like the early Stadium Series and the early Winter Classics when the fan versions weren't very accurate.
Oh, man.
Those are the rarest jerseys right now.
But because they're not accurate, even if they are rare, I have no desire for them because they're not accurate. Doesn't matter how rare they are.
No, and I've seen some of them. I've seen the 2011 Heritage Classic Montreal jersey.
Yeah,
garbage. Garbage. So do I want something like that? Like, no. I mean, I just can't think of a jersey rare enough that I want to compromise the quality of it to buy a Fanatics jersey, because the problem is that Fanatics jerseys aren't cheap enough to make the compromising quality worth it.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, take for example, like an uncommon jersey, the Vancouver second gradient jersey.
Yeah,
not super valuable, not super rare, but when they do come up, people want to fetch premium for them if they know what they have. So it's that's like $150 for one.
Yep, that's true.
So I can get the real one, or I can get for the same price, I can get the reproduction one.
So I guess a fisherman jersey becomes more rare for me because I'm looking for a 2X. And when a 2X comes up, so is everyone else, and it drives up the price. Whereas if you were to look for a fisherman jersey, you may find a single X or a large, or you may find a few of them, and one or two might come back over the year. And we're talking on eBay or Kijiji or whatever here. But when I'm looking for a 2X, it's so rare, and there's always someone out there who's willing to pay. So maybe that's why I would make a concession and pick up a Fanatics one.
I think that there is one point to be made specifically about the Fisherman and the Burger King, is if you want a blank one.
You need, not on the Burger King, you definitely need numbers. I think.
No, you do, but I want to pick the player. Like, if I want to get Stefan Quintel on that, because again, I get players on my jerseys that I personally like.
Or Byron Defoe, I think, was on the team, or Jamie Storr.
Byron Defoe was the goalie for 20 games in 95-96. I'd get him on the Burger King in a heartbeat. And again, and don't get me wrong, so I got my 2014 Pittsburgh Stadium Series jersey. I got Crosby on that. Why? That was his best season, points wise. Mm-hmm. But my Jonas Hoagland jersey, or my Darcy Tucker Colorado jersey, or this Atlanta jersey is either going to be Slava Kozlov, Pasi Nurminen, or Sean McEachran. Like, these aren't common names. I just like the players, and I like when players have good years. I don't want, my whole closet to be McDavid, Gretzky, or Howe, and I don't want it to be the Hockey Hall of Fame. If I want to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, I'll go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. My jersey closet should be my personal Hockey Hall of Fame. It should be full of Jason Arnott, Andre Pavlik, and those type of guys.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so again, that would be interesting to hear where everyone lies on that. Let us know on Twitter if you would take a Fanatics jersey over, even if it was a rare jersey that you're looking for. Is Fanatics acceptable in that situation? Let us know. That is what we have for you this week. On the blog right now, we always have the weekly Concept of the Week vote. We also have the Buffalo Sabres redesign competition, just for fun competition. That's going on. So you have until October 12th, I think, to get your entries in for that one. That should be pretty fun because the Sabres are one of those teams that people are always bitching about their uniforms. So we're going to do...
And remember, if you put the slug on your jerseys, I'm going to vote for you.
There you go. You get a
free vote.
Free vote.
You put the slug anywhere on your jersey. And you get and I'll concede for a goat head if there aren't enough, but yeah, shout out to the first person to just put their original jerseys on the Adidas template.
There you go.
You're a jerk.
We
have a new writer.
We do have a new writer. Actually, this comes out on Tuesday, so you'll know that it's Corey by the time you're listening to this podcast. Corey is a longtime reader of HJC, and we're going to give him a shot at the writing position, and he may show up on some future podcasts. So Corey will be taking over Monday's spot on the HJC rotation. We also have jersey casual shirt, stickers, phone cases, all available for sale. That's on the shop tab at hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. And we want to know what you think as we've been talking about all these topics. You guys can get involved, as we've been mentioning, at HockeyJC on Twitter, or you can email us, podcast at hockeyjerseyconcepts.com, and share the podcast with your friends. Get your network of friends listening to the podcast. That way you can start talking about what you heard every Tuesday with all your friends.
We're coming up on 1 year here, guys.
I know, a couple more episodes and we'll be there.
2 more episodes till the 1 year anniversary of the HJC podcast. And we need mailbag questions for the 1 year.
We should dive into the mailbag. Get into a few mailbag questions. So again, if you have mailbag questions, I did take down the mailbag form just because the segment had gone a little stale. But if we do get some questions, you can email them in to us. Again, podcast at hockeyjerseyconcepts.com. We get some good questions, and maybe for the 1 year anniversary, we'll get all the writers answering some crazy questions. Just give us some ridiculous questions. Like, I can't even, we had a really good series of questions. I think the last time we did the mailbag about a driveway. Oh, I can't even remember the stupidity of the questions now, but the stupider, the better.
Tell us about your Tim Hortons hockey cards if you're from Canada.
There you go.
It's Tim Hortons hockey card season right now. I bought a few packs, and tell me about the cards you're disappointed about. Tell me which players. Remember, this card set's only 150 cards. So tell me if you got a player that you really didn't want in there. Because I remember in 2004, I got a McDonald's hockey card set that had a Blues rookie by the name of Peter Sejna. Never played a game in the NHL, but he got a card.
He got a card.
And yet,
give him a card.
A lot of guys in 04 didn't get cards. And I have a feeling that Tim's is doing that this year. So, give us a shout out of what crappy Tim's cards you've got and what crappy coffee you had to buy to get them for $1 off.
There we go. My son is into stickers, so I'll be doing stickers with him this year. I was doing them with him last year. I actually got my own book for the fun of it last year, but this year we'll have one book, and he and I will be doing hockey stickers, which is always a blast. That goes back to I remember being 5 years old, going through my stickers, and just being really excited because I got a Gretzky Oilers sticker, and he'd just been traded to the Kings. So that was a big highlight. So maybe my son will have a blast this year, going through the stickers, and I'll go through with them. That's what we have for you this week, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again next week on the Jersey Nerds podcast.
Keep it